Welcome to the Vintage Ballers Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Coreno, and on today's episode, we have Eric Metcalf joining the show. Eric attended the University of Texas, where he was a two-time NCAA long jump champion and a football star before entering the NFL in 1989, where he spent 13 seasons, primarily with the Cleveland Browns. So without further ado, please welcome Eric Metcalf. You know, Eric, it's a real treat having you on the show. You know, and I grew up watching you, man. You understand, like, well, you do understand as far as the Browns are concerned, because you know how diehard the fans are. But my dad had season tickets, Eric, for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
So, and back in the old stadium. So when you were drafted in '89, I was a little kid then. I was like 6, 7 years old. But everyone, it was a lot of hype around you, obviously coming in, you know, out of college. And we all know how it went. I mean, all the returns, and I can go on and on. I mean, we still talk about in this town. My group of friends still talks about the 2 punt returns against the Steelers. We were 10 years old then. That was like iconic. So, you know, you're a legendary figure, and you're still someone who's talked about a lot in Browns history. I mean, you talk to anybody. I put you on my story a couple of days or about a week ago, telling people you're going to be on the show. I must have had 15 people reply to it. Say, my favorite player of all time, love Metcalf. I mean, you are very iconic here, and your name is someone that, I mean, everybody knows you. So it's an honor having you. And I want to give a couple shout outs before we start. One to Reggie Langhorn for making this happen. I know it's your boy. Love Reggie. Known him for years. My dad's good friends with Reggie. Mm-hmm. And I also want to give a shout out to Brett Muche, Mooch, as you know, Mooch. Mm-hmm. And he's my brother's best friend. So he's known you for a while too. So he's like, you got to tell Eric I said hi. I'm like, I'll give you a shout out.
For sure.
Yep. Want to give those two guys a shout out. And I want to start this off by going back to your childhood. And you were born in Seattle, moved to Virginia. When did you first fall in love with the game of football?
When I was 7. And so, because my mother and father had me in high school, I was able to see my dad play in college. Even though I was young, I was able to see my dad play in college and right as he went into the NFL. So from that day, I wanted to be a football player. You know, when I was 7 years old, the very first day sign up for football, my mom wakes me up. She said, "Let's go. We got to go sign up for football." And I go down there, but you're supposed to be 8 years old. So she takes me down there, and right as I'm getting out the car, she says, "Now you remember, you're 8 years old." And I was like, okay. And so I told them I was 8 years old, and then they didn't really find out that I wasn't until it was time to turn the birth certificates.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love it. So when your dad, I was funny. I was just talking to my dad about your dad, about Terry. And he was talking about how great of a player he was in the Cardinals and all that. And that was before my time. But, you know, when you growing up the son of an NFL player, and obviously, you know, I guess the love for the game is probably at a different level, and you understand the game at a different level. What did he teach you when you were a young kid as far as the game of football?
It's funny you asked that, because my dad actually never taught me anything.
Really?
I mean, we played catch and did things like that. And one day, even when I was young, he took me outside and he was throwing the ball straight up in the air as high as he could, trying to get me to catch it. And I kept saying, "I can't catch it. I can't catch it." And he's like, "Don't you say you can't catch it." Right. And so I guess he was getting me ready to catch punts.
Wow,
so, right.
Fun.
So I couldn't do it. And so, you know, he never really taught me anything, because he always felt like he wanted me to go through the process myself and become my own player out there and just do things my way. He also told me, but not until I was in the NFL, that, "Oh, I knew you were going pro." Like even when I was younger, he said, "I knew, but I couldn't tell you that."
I love it. Keep you humble.
And so, yeah, like even because he coached football on my high school team when I was in Virginia, but he wouldn't coach the running backs. He said he would coach the receivers, because he didn't want to mess with me. He just wanted me to go out there and do my own thing and have my own experience at it.
Now, my buddy actually asked me to ask you this question. Who did you model yourself after as a running back?
Terry Metcalf. You know,
okay, your dad.
I mean,
okay.
I wanted to be my dad. Everything I did, it was about him, and I wanted to be just like him. And Walter Payton was another guy that I really liked, and if there was no Terry Metcalf, it would have been Walter Payton at the time. But there was, and that's why I'm here. And so I wanted to be like him. I always wanted to wear the same number for the most part until I got 2 and I fell in love with that number. But I always wanted to pattern my game after him. But it's funny because I I never went out and practiced any moves that I saw him make on film or anything. I just went out there and played and ran, and it just so happened that they almost looked exactly the same.
And did you have any favorite team back then?
San Diego Chargers.
Chargers? Okay. Love it.
Their uniforms. I'm
yeah.
into uniforms and looking good.
The best.
My dad used to always say, if you look good, you play good. And so in my mind, that was the best looking uniform and still is. So I'm a closet Charger fan. I have to be now because, you know, I'm all in with the Browns, but when growing up, my team was the Chargers.
Well, those powder blue uniforms are just, I love those things.
There's nothing like it.
No, there's nothing like it. No.
And I was upset because when I went to the Chargers, they were wearing navy.
That's right. They weren't powder blue then. I forgot about that.
So I never got to wear the powder blue. And that was one of the reasons I went there as a free agent.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because it was my favorite team. And so I wanted to be, you know, I want to play for my favorite team. I finally get the chance and they're wearing navy.
I love it. And you were there for like Ncaa and all those guys, right? Was Lorenzo Neal there? Was he there at that time, or was he not?
He was gone.
Okay, he was gone. Okay, yeah, I remember those teams like the late night. It was like 97, probably 98 around
97,
there.
97
yep, okay.
was the 1 year before they traded.
But you made the Pro Bowl that year, I believe, too, in 97. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm like probably the only person ever to say they hate the city of San Diego. And
really?
And I hate it because we were 4-12 and we weren't winning games, so it wasn't fun.
Okay.
Although I went to the Pro Bowl that year, it still wasn't fun because, you know, I want to be in a city that I can enjoy and feel like going out because we're winning games and feeling good about myself. I mean, I still felt good about myself, but as a team, I didn't like that feeling.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I love San Diego as a city. I've been there multiple. My cousin lives there and I love it, but I can see if it's not, it wouldn't be fun if you're losing like that. And you came from back then, and people forget the Browns back then, you know, and I know some of the years you were there, the Browns were about 500, but you came into a Browns team that had been the AFC Championship games, and you had the history with Jim Brown and all the different guys that had been here. And, you know, it was really a rich history, and people don't understand who aren't Browns fans or aren't from around here. They always ask me, like, why are you guys such diehard Browns fans, even when you lost for 20 some years? And I'm like, you don't know the history behind, you know, before we left. It was just a history that was really only a few teams in the NFL had that kind of rich history with all the Hall of Famers that played here, and, you know, the legendary Paul Brown as coach, and then, of course, you know, you had just so much going on. And then we left and it all changed. The expansion team was just that was for 20 years, it was misery. Now obviously we're going back to the glory days, but with you guys, I mean, you are part of that original Browns culture, you know, so you and Reggie and all those guys, Clay Matthews, Bernie, I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, but again, I have a lot of friends who aren't from Cleveland who are like, I don't understand the love for the Browns. Why so many people in Cleveland love the Browns? I'm like, you had to have grown up here and experienced it. It's ingrained in the city.
It's one of those things, either you know or you don't know.
Absolutely. Exactly.
And even before I got drafted, I obviously knew who the Browns were because I'm a football fan, but I didn't know until I became a Brown. Because when I first got there, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm there for mini camp. Right after the draft, it's snowing in May. So I know it's going to be snowing in the winter, and they play on natural grass. I said, I don't think this is going to work, especially coming from Austin, Texas, and playing on AstroTurf, and it's 80 degrees every week. I wasn't feeling too good about it until I came back after holding out, got to last week of training camp, got into the season, and I loved it ever since.
Well, we'll get to that. I want to talk about your career here because there's so much to talk about. But before then, let's talk about Texas a little bit. And when you're in high school, you know, when did you know, Eric, like, I can play not only major college football, but in the NFL? Like, was it in high school or was it in college?
It was in grade school.
So you knew early then, real early.
No, really. I when I was in grade school, I was practicing my signature because I knew I was going to the NFL. I had a game when I was 7 years old, and I actually scored 10 touchdowns.
Did you 10 touchdowns?
And they called 3 back, so I ended up with 7. But in my mind, I'm sticking with the 10, regardless, because I touched that end zone 10 times, right?
My God.
So back then, you know, I knew I was going to be able to play in the NFL, and that's part of the reason why I ended up in high school in Virginia, because as a freshman, the high school I went to, known for football, it's all boys school here. They won the state championship. They wouldn't let me play varsity as a freshman, and so I ended up playing freshman football, and we only played 5 games against 3 teams.
Oh, geez.
But because of my age, I could have played little league football with all my friends, played 10 games, won another little league championship, and had lots of fun. But I didn't have any fun. And so I told them, if you don't let me play varsity as a freshman, I won't be here next year. And so I was here living with my mother. My dad was in Virginia after finishing with the Redskins. And so in my mind, I had a goal of playing football in the South anyway, because I felt like that'd be better football. And so when they didn't play me, I was like, I'm going to Virginia because I'll get to a school in the South. And so then I get to Virginia and I go in as a sophomore. And meanwhile, going in as a sophomore to play football, I'm only 14 years old. Still. So,
Young.
So yeah, I was young. So my freshman year of football, I was 13, the entire season.
Wow.
And so I get there. I only played 3 or 4 games my sophomore year because I broke my thumb, and they had to keep re-breaking it because it wasn't setting right. And so I come back my junior year, and now it's on. and nothing goes wrong. Everything seems to be working out just fine. I'm like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to be able to go to whatever school I want to go to. Because not only that, but track as well.
Oh, I knew your track is incredible. I want to get into that too. I mean, a 2-time long jump champion. I was talking to my buddy. My buddy was one of the biggest football recruits back in 2002. He played for Ohio State. And he didn't realize all your stuff. The long jumps. I mean, it was just incredible. A 2-time NCAA champion. That you just don't see that very often. And a guy who's that good at football and an incredible at track. And my brother-in-law Rob was a track star, high school and college, and he didn't even know about your records. I was reading him the other day on Memorial Day. He's like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "Metcalf was incredible." So I mean, it was just you. I mean, really, man. It's like that's. I wanted in the junior Olympic trials. I saw that. I think you finished 8th in the Olympic trials. And this is all as a football player, and you're a track star on top of that. So going into Texas, like why, I guess my question would be why Texas? Was it something that attracted you there, or was it just did you always love the college, or was it the coach, or what was it that brought you there?
Well, that was my first visit I took, and I actually loved it, and especially in going to all these schools, I was thinking football and track. I was thinking I had to be able to do both. I didn't want to do spring ball. So that was key. And Texas had a very good track team. I actually committed to Miami.
Really?
After my
really?
visit.
The U?
Yeah, I committed 2 hours into the trip. I'm in. Pick me. I'm 17 years old. I can come down here and have a blast.
Oh, yeah.
And their track team wasn't very good. And so I was basically going to be like giving it up. Really, just to go play football and have lots of fun. But my parents weren't having it. I'm 17 years old. I had been to a Catholic school my entire life. Texas was the first public school I ever went to. They wanted me to go to Notre Dame.
Oh, really?
And I was like, so Miami didn't find out until signing day that I wasn't coming there. Because I was still trying to convince my parents that this is the place for me. And so I actually didn't sign until 8 days later. And so I reopened up recruiting, and all these schools came back, and I told my parents I won't go to Miami, but I'm not going to Notre Dame. It's not going to happen. And so Coach Akers came back up to see me. We talked, and I said, okay, I'll go to Texas. Let's do it. And loved it.
Well, it's
even
funny.
Even though we didn't win many games. I love it.
You had a great career there. And it's funny because I had three of my family members that went to Notre Dame, and they're Browns fans too. And then I had one of my cousins went to Texas. So I have a lot of connections here. And her name is Amy, and she loved Texas. They're Texas all the way. And
I love it.
I'll tell you what, the Longhorn and then basketball. I mean, you guys had a lot of over the years, Durant and LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, there's been a lot of talent to come out of Texas. No one talks about the basketball. I mean, you got some great players come out of there.
I think in the last 4 or 5 years, they've had like 4 one and dones.
Yeah.
It's been Jared Allen, Mo Bamba.
I forgot about Mo Bamba.
Miles Turner.
Wow, Miles went there too. You're right.
Jackson Hayes.
I forgot. We have Jared Allen now. The Cavs do. I love Jared Allen. Yeah, love him.
Yeah. Yep. So they put some good basketball players out.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, it's too bad KD didn't stay for a couple of years. I would have loved to seen what he. I mean, he was just what a talent he was. But yeah, you guys have. He was already gone.
He was a pro before he got there.
Oh, he was a pro when he was 17. That guy's a whole different story.
Right.
He is. But going back to your Texas days, and being a two-sport guy, how did you manage that?
Well, it was pretty easy. I mean, I shouldn't say easy. I mean, I had done it all my life, ran track, played football. When football was over, go straight into track, which is different in college because they have indoor track. And so you just go straight into it. And so I was able to manage it because it's no different than anybody else as far as a college football player, because I ran track, they would have been in football doing the same things, right? Basically. And so it was fairly easy. My whole thing was I do not want to go through spring ball. So I had to be good at the long jump, because if I wasn't any good, they probably wouldn't let me do it. Right? And so I didn't want to go. And so it worked out good. We had great coaches in both in football and track. And so it made it a lot easier for me as far as competing, and then just try to take care of my business in the school as well.
And Eric, take us back. For those of you listening, Eric was a 1986 and 1988 long jump NCAA champion, which is incredible. So take us back to those years. And did you, obviously you knew you were good, but did you think I'm the best in the nation?
Oh, I knew I was.
Okay, you knew.
And so 1986, my freshman year, I won the national championship. And I had told my coach that I'm gonna win it. I'm gonna, I'm a football player, so my mentality is different.
Oh yeah.
If I wasn't good, I think I am, right? Right. And so I go out there and I win it. I come back my sophomore year, and I was hurt pretty much most of the year. I took a tumble and fell on the shot put ring and hit my leg, and so I was hurt. But I still say I won that one also, because when I put my clothes on after my sixth jump, I was winning.
Wow.
And then two guys passed me on their last jump, and that's how I ended up third. And so then I come back my junior year, and I guaranteed to everyone I will win this again. And I did. And that year, my junior year, I had all but one jump that wouldn't have won it.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then I come back my senior year, and I didn't jump, because my goal going into track was to win 4 straight national titles. And obviously that goal was shot. So I figured I might as well get ready for the draft.
What was tougher to prepare for, track or football?
Well, I think track. I would say track for me, because it's individual, right? And you go out there, and obviously I had a reputation, and people expected me to go out there and jump far and do big things. And so while others were expecting me to do those things, my goals and expectations were even greater. And so just going out there and trying to be the best all the time was tough, because we are always and granted, I didn't win every meet, and some meets that, like conference championships, I didn't win, because to be honest, I really didn't care. I wanted to win the big one, and that's all that matters to me. You can have all the little ones. I just want to win the big one. So it was hard preparing for that and getting ready. But I think with my coach, we did a good job of going out there and for the most part completing the goal.
And that makes sense. I mean, as far as the individual sport as well, I never thought of it that way, because football, obviously it's a team sport. You have so much that goes into it, and it's not all reliant on just you. So yeah, that would be a very different mentality going into both of those.
Right. Now, because football, like I said, we weren't very good. We won 24 games in my 4 years. And so I could go out there and be the best football player in the world, but it's still going to be hard to win games if your team's not very good. And
yeah, that's true.
So there's pressure, but it's not as much, because everybody knows that it's not really going to happen. Whereas you get on that track, it's you against the world.
That's true. That's very true. It's funny. My dad used to talk to Phil Dawson, the kicker, from Texas. And I'll tell you what an awesome career he had. And just one of the best kickers I've ever seen. And he would just talk. He would always tell my dad about the pressure kickers face and kicking in Cleveland and everything. And it was really interesting getting, because when you're a kicker, you're almost like on your own little team. It's not, because it's like your own mindset. You're part of the team, but you're kind of in your own little thing. So he'd always, my dad actually helped him out a couple of times, and they became pretty good friends years ago. But I remember that Texas connection, of course, another great player to come out of Texas. But Phil,
I think we're born on the same day also.
Really? I didn't know that.
I'm not sure. I'm pretty, I could be right.
he was, I'll tell you what, some of the kicks he made here, Eric, were just, there's a snow kick, he like 46-yarder, and that I've never seen anything like that before. And that he was a hell of a kicker. And he used to tell my dad the wind, he got to know where the wind was coming in, and he would laugh at opposing kickers coming in. He goes, they wouldn't have any idea the one side of the stadium, and he knew when a kick was not going to go in or not. And so Phil goes, it took me a couple years to figure it out. And once I did, of course, he was, became one of the greatest kickers we've ever had. But going back now to the draft night 1989. Did you have any idea where you were going, and do you think you're going to be, top of the first round, late first round? Where did you think?
I thought I'd be in between 15 and 20. I honestly thought that I'd go to the Jets. I wanted to go to the Rams, which they were in the late 20s. But that just at that time, I was thinking, hey, I want to be in the glam and the glitz of LA. And so, and then I had friends who went to Texas who were playing there as well. And so that's where I wanted to go. But I could say I had an idea I was going to be a Brown, and then at the same time I didn't. A couple of days before the draft, Mike Lombardi came to visit me, and he was asking me to do a box test and do some agility tests, and I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. First of all, he walked into the intramural gym where I had just finished hooping. And he's like, I flew down here. I want you to do these tests. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. He's like, why? We're talking about drafting you. I said, that's okay. It's not going to happen. And I never said it to him, but my thinking was, I just finished playing basketball. That's part of it. If I wouldn't have done it, even if I hadn't, I was like, I just finished playing basketball. I'm 5'10", 183 pounds. If I don't run this test as fast as he thinks I should, what does that do to me in the draft?
You're going down. Yep, you're right.
I'm going down, Yep. I'm a smaller guy. So if we just go off what they see on tape and on the track, I figure we're good. And that's why you're thinking about drafting. And so I would not run it. I didn't run it. I fly home for the draft to be with my family here in Seattle, watching the draft, and I hear the Denver Broncos have traded this pick or these picks to Cleveland Browns. I turned to my mother and said, I'm about to get drafted. And she's like, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And I did, because like I said, I thought the Jets were going to draft me, which was the next pick. And so I figured I was going to be a Brown then. And so, and it's worked out just fine. The rest is history. I wish I could have been a Brown my entire career, but even if I never got traded, I still wouldn't have been. Right? I would end up being a Raven, right?
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, and I think Browns fans love to hear this from you, but like, it's just, again, you are such a part of the culture here. And that old, that 80s, early 90s Browns team is so revered in Cleveland. And all those guys, from Clay to Bernie to Reggie to Minifield, and we go down the line of different guys, and yourself and Michael Dean Perry. I mean, so many guys that played in that team. Eric Turner. I mean, it was just one great player after another, and a lot of Kevin Mack. Did you
won it?
Pardon?
Should have won the Super Bowl.
Oh, should have won it. I mean, there's no question about it. They should have gotten there multiple times. And my dad's still convinced that the one field goal that I think it was Rich Carlos in Denver kicked, when Elway had the drive, he's still convinced it didn't go in. He's like, it went over the upright. It was not, he, to this day, he'll argue about that. He's like, that did not go in. And you'll have other fans who are sitting behind there who say did not go in, but that's a whole different debate. But, you're looking back, when I had Reggie on, Reggie said, when I came in 85, there was no dog pound. That was the first year when the dog pound was kind of created. And so you were coming in really when the dog pound was just getting going, 4 years into it. And those fans, the old Cleveland Stadium, for my nephews and the younger kids who were watching, who never got to go to the old stadium, there was nothing. It was the dingiest stadium. It was dirty. And it was you did not want to be an opposing player coming in there. The fans were mean. It was hostile. And it was, as a little kid, I remember going there, Eric, and it was just rocking. People were nuts. It was all Browns. And it was just, they used to play. I remember the song they used to play when we would get a touchdown. And I remember everything about it. I remember the old scoreboard and everything. And just the dog pound in general. I remember you jumping in after your turns, and there was just nothing like that back then in that stadium. And I look back in the history, and when you first came in, so we're talking about training camp, 89, how did you embrace, like, I guess, how did Cleveland embrace you, and how did you embrace them that first, year, 89, when you first got here?
Well, like I said, I held out my rookie year. So I only got to play one preseason game. So I don't know if people really saw me until we got really going. The first game we beat Pittsburgh 51-0, and I didn't really do much. And then we played, I don't even remember who we played after that, but a few games later, Cincinnati on Monday night, which is my first touchdown that everyone talks about. And so I think from that point on, I kind of grew on people, and then the expectations of something big happening were growing, and did a lot of good things. We won some games we weren't supposed to win. We lost some games that we shouldn't have, but we ended up winning the division, and on the road to winning that division, there were a couple good games that I think people were happy with from me. And so, the fans embraced me. They loved me and all that, and I love the fans. And so I always tell my family, if you guys don't have to love me, I'll go to Cleveland for a couple days.
That's true too.
if I ever need a pat on the back, I'll just go to Cleveland.
Oh, that is great, and that's true. I mean, I swear to God, Browns fans are. Eric, I lived in LA for a little bit. I used to go to Browns backers bars, and I mean, they're just. And this is back when we were terrible, and it was just packed, 100 people in these bars. And I'm thinking to myself, and this is when we were 3-13, 4-12, and so I mean, coming this year, I'm so excited to see the team this year. Now that we can actually pack the stadiums again, and it's going to be because we didn't get to really celebrate last year, but now with the team they have, it's going to be. I just can't wait. But going back to the 89 season, Reggie actually had a funny story about that touchdown against Cincinnati. And he said you came in the sidelines and you were kind of mad. And he's like, why are you mad? He's like, well, they touched me. You had a little bit of green on your pants. They touched me. And can you take us back to that kick return?
No, it was actually a swing pass.
Okay, swing pass. Okay.
Swing pass, like kind of hopped here, hopped there, and they ran in. And I know the story because everybody is running up to me and they're like, great move. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are they talking about? I'm like, and everyone just kept saying, great move. And in my mind, I felt like I caught the ball and ran straight in the end zone. And then I saw it on the screen and I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're talking about now. And then I'm sitting next to Reggie and I was like, but the guy hit my sock and knocked it down. And so the picture's all messed up. and so now I'm going here running in the end zone looking sloppy.
Because Reggie told me that I was dying. I'm like, oh, that's great.
And because he thinks I'm the most bougie person.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And he's always gonna have those stories, especially from someone who didn't like me when I first got there.
Oh, I was laughing when he first said that. He goes, I didn't like Eric when he first got there. He goes, I didn't like, and Reggie's straightforward. You know how he is.
And I watched the whole interview and I watched it and I was like, that's all cool, fine and dandy. You're telling the story, but your timeline is all jacked up. Right?
Great. Let's straighten it out then. I want to hear the real timeline.
The timeline is I came to minicamp. He met me at Stephen Bragg's house, and because Stephen played with me at Texas. And so when I came from minicamp, I was over there, we were hanging out, and I guess he didn't like me then. I didn't know he didn't like me until later on. Then we come back for training camp, and he was like, he thinks I'm stuck up. I'm this first round pick who went to Texas and all that, and so I think I'm big. And I always tell those guys, so you had it wrong. I didn't think I was big or special. I just expected to be here. And that's what it is. And so we got to go and hanging out in the week of training camp, and then like I said, I was only there for 1 week, and then we were moving out. And so the first couple of weeks, after us being together for a week or so, he let me stay with him until I found a place. See, so he was talking about us a year later. The second year, it was a week later.
So he 51 weeks off.
right. That he let me stay at his house, and so we hung out, and we've been close ever since.
That's really cool. I mean, it seems like you guys have like almost like a brotherly relationship, and that's awesome. And Reggie, again, like I remember, back in those days, Reggie and Slaughter. I mean, of course, the infamous duo, and you coming into that team. So at that point, there was a lot of guys who've been here 3, 4, 5 years. They kind of grew up together. They've been in some big games. Was it tough to fit into that team, or do they kind of embrace you?
No, I think it's tough for guys if you come in and don't do what's expected of you. Right? If you're the 13th pick in the draft, people are expecting big things from you, right? And I think I did enough on the field and just being around them that they respected that and appreciated that. And so it was okay to fit in with them. Once we got started, it was okay, because once we got to the actual field, it just made everything a lot easier, because then I could do what I do, and then I know they'll appreciate it, and they did.
Eric, what was your first impression of Browns fans?
I loved it from day one. I mean, going out there, and because to me, when I think of Cleveland, I think of it like the fans. I think of like college town, right? The Cavs, no disrespect, they win the world championship, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's just like being in Texas, Alabama. Basketball teams can win all they want, but if it's not the football team, no one really cares, right? Right. And so that's what I appreciate about the Browns fans. It's like the Browns fans weren't about, we like players, and if they leave, we're gonna follow them. Browns fans love the Browns, and a lot of people are grown into it from family, and so but when it's all said and done, you can go anywhere, and when you're a Browns fan, you're a Browns fan, and they love it through and through many losses and a lot of good wins. And like you said earlier, that's why I'm really looking forward to this season, because it's going to be rocking. So we all got to watch that good season last year, but not be there because we had to just watch it on TV. And so imagine if some of those games had fans. Imagine if that Baltimore game where Lamar came back and won, imagine if there were fans. That game might be different.
You're right.
Right.
That's a good point.
It might be different. And so this year, I mean, there's great expectations. Everybody is picking them to do very well. And I think they will, because we've done a lot of good things in the off season. And now they have time to go out there and work together. So when they get out there, there's expectations, but hey, I think they're built for it.
Eric, what do you think of Nick Chubb? What are your impressions of him as a running back? He just seems like such a humble, good dude. And with his injury history in college, I didn't expect much out of him. I really didn't. And he's turning into one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the NFL. And what did you think of him, his first year? And did you think he'd be this good?
Well, I loved him. I don't know if for a running back, it's hard to say if they're going to be, how good they're going to be, because you never know how the line is going to be put together. You never know the situations that they're going to be put in. But once he got going, once he finally got the plan and they got rid of Carlos Hyde because he was starting to score, right?
Yep.
That's when he got the plan and being the guy. He has been the guy.
Yes, he has.
And how he goes is how the team goes. And it's really tough to be in that position, because our team is best, as we proved last year, when they run the football, and they're running the football well with Nick, even when teams know that we're going to run the ball.
That's a great point.
That's the key. And so because he's able to do what he's doing, and they know he's getting the ball, that to me, that makes it even better, right? And so they need to go ahead and re-sign him now.
I agree. Oh, I totally agree. And Eric, I'm usually not a big fan of re-signing running backs. You got to re-sign him. He's too good. You can't let that guy go.
Because you look in the league, and how many people can you say are like that from the running back position, who you can just, if you don't have him, you can just plop somebody in his spot. And in our case, you can't do that, but you got to take Kareem out of it, right? Because we have the best 1-2 punch in the league, but you can't say, oh, we can just throw Kareem in, take him out of it. The number one running back, it's rare that you can put somebody of that caliber and they're going to do somebody do the exact same things that he's doing. There's like
that's true.
Him, Derrick Henry, in
Maybe
Carolina, Christian
McCaffrey. Yeah,
when he's healthy.
Yep.
Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook.
Yep.
Another person who gets hurt though, and so there's only a handful of these guys at the running back position that can get it done all the time.
That's true. I mean, it reminds me honestly of Tomlinson back in the LaDainian when he was just the Chargers offense. I mean, he could do him and Antonio, of course, but I mean, he could do everything. He could catch out of the backfield. You couldn't stop him. And Nick's the same way. I mean, Nick won us that playoff game. I mean, he ended the playoff game for us with Pittsburgh when he took that little dump off pass and then won 40 yards. That was it. That was over. And you get him in the open field. I mean, that's why this year with Odell coming back and the drafting of Schwartz, a guy like yourself who's 4.2 speed and the offense, and you still got those tight ends are all good. I mean, you got a lot of weapons on this offense. It's incredible.
I don't think people really know how fast Anthony Schwartz is. I when I was I think it was like 2017 maybe. I was a coach on the U.S. Junior team. I was a sprint coach on the U.S. track team, and he was one of the members of the team. And so we got pretty close. We got to talking to each other because his flights all got messed up. And so I had to stay around and wait for him and do a lot of things with him, just me and him, because the team was gone on trips and stuff like that. And so when we talk about speed, this dude, I'm willing to put anything down. He right now, hands down, is the fastest person in the NFL.
Really?
Yeah. You put him in a 100-meter dash, he's going to win. He ran 10.0 in high school.
Wow.
And so if he really went out there and worked on it, he could probably make the Olympic team or have a good shot at it. Yes, wow. For sure. Yeah.
How happy you were when the Browns drafted him?
Oh, I was happy. I texted his mother immediately. I was like, welcome to the family and all that, because when you have someone like that with that speed, it just changes everything. You put him in the slot, let him run straight down the field. I dare the safety to be back there by himself. He's going to run by him. Now, if you double cover him, now you got Jarvis, you got Odell. Those guys just come under that and catch balls and make plays. So it gives us so many options with him on the field, because jet sweeps, all that. He can do it all.
I was going to say that with Odell and him together, and then Jarvis can do a lot of things. I mean, they got so many guys and then the tight end, you can't leave. I mean, Hooper and Joe, all those guys, Brian, it is so much talent. And we're not even talking about Kareem coming off you just have so many different weapons. I mean, I can't wait to see what Stefanski, what he comes up with this year. I'm sure he's scheming right now, but I mean, there's so many different looks. In your opinion, what is the best way to use a guy like, Anthony Schwartz, especially in his rookie season?
I think everywhere. I mean, I just haven't taken the top off the defense for sure. Use that God-given speed that he has, because it puts the defense in such a bind. And like I said, once again, if you do a little play action, because they know we can run the ball, and he's running full speed down the field, you bite on that run, it's over. You can't with these guys, if he's 2 yards away from him, he's past you, because they can't turn around with him.
No, that's true.
And so there's so many things that you can do because of that speed, deep crossing patterns, the same things that Kansas City does with Tyreek.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Tyreek, what a monster.
Only he's faster.
Oh, he's a monster. I watched him. It's unbelievable. And especially with Mahomes, obviously. You watch those two, it's just, and Kelsey. I mean, you got the best tight end in football. Yeah, they're just that's a whole different beast over there. But I watched them just demolish Buffalo, and that AFC Championship game. Everybody thought, oh, Buffalo's going to give them a game. It wasn't even close. They just absolutely demolished them. And then the Super Bowl was different because they had offensive linemen hurt, and Mahomes was kind of hurt. It was kind of different. But when they're healthy, that's gonna be a great first game with the Browns and Chiefs.
I mean, but I don't know if that first game really matters.
It doesn't.
Ask the Browns from last year, right?
That's true. It doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't really matter, because you have to be able to build. I think it'll show us where we are right then. I mean, it doesn't determine how the season will go, but it will show us where we are at that very moment when it's a big game. Regardless, people say whatever, it's only one game, but it's still a big game, right? Because everyone's expecting Kansas City to go back to the Super Bowl. Now, if we go out there and we do something special and we beat them, now things are changing. We just have to be able to manage it throughout the course of the year.
Okay, a couple more current Browns questions. I want to go back to a couple of old days, but Miles Garrett, you're a freaky athlete. So you know freaky athletes. Where do you put him in that conversation? Is just an absolute, beat. I mean, I watched some of the stuff he does. I mean, he's insane. I mean, like, and he hasn't. It's a shame he got COVID last year because that kind of screwed up his whole season. He wasn't the same player when he came back. But man, he is. I mean, we talk about a monster. He's just built differently, and he's quick, and I mean everything. But where do you put him in that conversation of just freaky athlete?
Oh, he's freakish, and you can't leave him on the island by that left tackle on the island by himself.
No.
And so, like you said before COVID, in my mind, I'd already given him the Defensive Player of the Year award. I thought he was going to win it, hands down, because the way he was playing, the way he was creating havoc on offenses, and unfortunately, he got COVID, and like you said, he never came back at the same speed. But just the fact that he was out there changes offenses, and so now he's one of those dudes that can do it all. I mean, you can put him anywhere, I think, because he's a freakish athlete, and to me, that's what a football player is. I always ask people, who's the best football player in the league, and people give different opinions of who they think. Then I say, okay, if we'll say Tom Brady, if he's considered the best player in the league, if he doesn't play quarterback, what else could he play?
Nowhere. I mean, not especially his age.
So then how? I mean, even in his prime. And so
nowhere. Yeah.
So how is he the best football player in the league? Right.
I never looked at it that way. Yeah.
you take a Miles Garrett, if he doesn't play defensive end, I'm sure he can play something else.
Oh yeah, he could put him. Yeah.
You take Aaron Donald, I'm sure he can play somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that's what makes guys freakish athletes, freakish football players, because you can't put them in a hole and say, this is what you do. Nope, it's not. I think a football player is someone who could do a lot of things.
See, that's one of the reasons I love Jarvis Landry too. You watch Jarvis, he can do a little bit of everything. I mean, he's a good blocker. He obviously can throw the football. We've seen him throw multiple touchdowns. He can run it. We've seen him run it. He's just a complete receiver. And I think, and the Clevelanders love him, of course, but I think the national media doesn't understand how great of an all-around football player Jarvis really is. Odell gets a lot of the spotlight. Jarvis is every bit as good, in my opinion. He's an all-around football player who could do it all.
That's right. And I think we were talking last year on Channel 19, and I was saying my cousin used to play with Jarvis at Miami, and he asked me what I think about Jarvis, and I think they took this in the wrong way, because I said I don't think he's a number one receiver, but I think he's a number one football player, because he can do it all. I mean, he has number one numbers, no doubt, and he's done things that number ones do. But I look at him more as a football player, because I feel like if he had to play running back, he could do it. If he had to return punts, which he does sometimes, he could do it. If he has to throw the ball, he can do it.
Yeah.
And so I think he's just a great football player. And so that's why I like him, because I'm into guys who can do it all. Because a lot of times people my size, his size, they like to discount folks because they might not have a whole bunch of yards and rushing the ball, or they might not have a whole bunch of yards receiving the ball. But if you have a whole bunch of yards doing everything, I feel like that makes you pretty good, right?
I mean, it's funny you say that, because you're the only player, I believe, in NFL history that has 7,000 total offensive yards and 7,000 return yards. Only player in NFL history. So that's a football player right there. And that's a complete football player. You did it all. So, I mean, you could put you receiver, running back, return man, punt, kick, doesn't matter. So I think you and Jarvis actually have a lot of similarities that way. And I think with Jarvis, I feel when he came here, Eric, in 2018, he was part of the reason the culture changed, in my opinion. I think he came here, he just has a different attitude. He's a football player. He wants to win. There's no BS with Jarvis. I want to just go on the field and win. We've seen him play hurt. He's just, I love the kid. I think he's just, him and Chubb are two of my favorite players in the team.
He's got a different kind of toughness, because, and like you said, different toughness, different mindset that's infectious. And all these guys that bought into it. We saw that when they were on Hard Knocks. We saw how he was acting in the meetings and all that. And so this is what he was teaching those guys and getting them ready for last year, which was the moment. Now I'm sure he's still harping on these guys and still getting at them. And so it'll be even better.
It will. I agree. And I can't go without asking about Baker. So we saw his progress last year, obviously, and he really the second half of the season, especially, I thought he really took off and played very well. How good does he have to play this year for us to be a true Super Bowl contender?
I think I don't think the way we play football, the way Stefanski runs his offense, I don't think he has to go out there and throw for 4,000 yards or 40 touchdowns. I think if he plays uh, better than last year or a little or right at last year, then we're still good because our offense is built off the run. We're built off of, and that's where you get all the play action. You get a lot of wide open throws, and so there'll be time just like last year against Tennessee where you might go out there and throw for almost 400 yards and light it up. But I don't think it's something that has to happen every weekend for us to be contenders. I think everybody just has to play steady and we just do what we do, and that's what I like about what Stefanski has done with them and the offense, because he's basically he calmed Baker down. He's the calming force that he needed, whereas the previous coaches, they were, let's go out there and throw it 40, 50 times and see if we can win it like that. But we didn't have to because the star was Nick Chubb. Mm-hmm. And so Stefanski, being in Minnesota, they proved that they could do it because he had Dalvin Cook. He was running for 1,000 yards, catching a lot of balls, but yet Diggs and Thielen were still catching for over 1,000 yards. Because they were going off that play action. And I think that's what Stefanski brought to the offense and calmed Baker down, told him it doesn't have to be about him, just play smart, good football, and we'll win a lot of games. And he's proven to be right.
You're right. And I think a lot of credit too goes to Andrew Berry and Stefanski combined. Just I think who he's brought in to the offense last year, now to the defense. I mean, and you want to talk about football players, John Johnson, Anthony Walker, and those kind of guys. And of course, JOK from Notre Dame. You got these guys who could play multiple positions. They can switch them up. Clowney, he could play multiple positions. I mean, it's going to be really on paper, Eric, you can make an argument they're the most talented team in football. And that's not a stretch. When you look at both sides of the football, they're that talented. And
they are. And that's why I'm so looking forward to them. And hopefully we get lucky and can sign Sheldon back.
Yes. Oh, I'd love to get Sheldon back. I love him.
Hopefully we can figure that out and get him back. And then we're gravy. I mean, it's just like, once again, it's a matter of them going out there and not taking it for granted.
Agree.
You still got to work hard. You still got to go out there and make plays. But with the players they have, we have the ability to do big things. And I've already said I'm going with 13-4.
I can see it. I don't think it's a stretch at all.
Right? 13-4.
I know with the 17 games.
But I said 11-5 last year.
Wow, you did. Wow.
I said 11-5 last year.
Now why did you think 11-5 before last year?
I was looking at the schedule. I was looking at the fact that Stefanski was coming in and with the calming force. I was looking at the fact that it was their second year playing together, and I just felt that they had a good shot and could have actually been like 12-4. Mm-hmm.
That COVID game with the Jets, that was a joke, and that was a joke. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Right. So we could have won that game as well. And so now I'm going in. I'm thinking 13-4. I think these guys know now, even though the season was good last year, they know now, even with all these players, that on Sundays, on Monday or Thursday, whatever the day is, that you still have to show up and play.
Yep.
And you can say COVID against the Jets or what have you, but the backups are pros too. So everybody's supposed to be ready. And so I think a game like that lets them know that we can't just show up and win. We still have to go out there and play good football and come out with victories. We get victories. It doesn't matter how they look. You just want victories. And I think they'll grow from last year and continue to grow, and it'll be fun.
This is the first season, Eric, I can remember since you played really back in the late 80s, early 90s, that I can remember looking at a schedule and not being completely intimidated by so many teams. When you look, you think, oh, we're going to lose it. Now I'm like, you know what? We can win almost every. I mean, the Chiefs is going to be tough, but even the Green Bay game, I'm thinking we can win that game. I mean, there's not, even if Rodgers is there, we can win that. So there's no one that really, with the roster we have, we're so dynamic and young and fast and quick and talented. It's like, there's not many teams that really scare me. Even Lamar, scary as Lamar is, he doesn't, now with the guys we have in defense, we almost beat him last year with our defense in shambles. So I'm thinking if we can, just at least somewhat contain Lamar, we could beat Baltimore. We put up 42 on their defense. So I just don't see a lot of teams that, I'm not saying we're going to win all these games, but I'm kind of like you, where 12 or 13 wins to me is not out of the question at all. I don't see why we couldn't.
Right. And that's what I feel the same way. And, just looking at the schedule, I'm like, okay, say we lose to Kansas City. Okay, maybe we lose to Green Bay. Maybe we lose to Lamar one time. Then what?
Well, yeah, who else? Yeah, we're 14-3. Yeah. And it's like, who else is going to be? You look at the schedule, like Denver and all these, Houston, no disrespect, but they don't really scare. None of these teams really scare me that much. Even Pittsburgh.
Threw another one in just because.
Yeah, just one more. 13. Yeah.
That's why I say 13-4, because just looking at the skills, I'm like, dang, we could really win almost every one of these games and put ourselves in position to have home field advantage with a full stadium.
That's what I'm looking forward to. The first Browns home playoff game. Oh, I can't imagine. I don't even want to think about it right now, but it would be incredible. Now, speaking of playoff games, take us back to the 89-90 season, and of course the Buffalo game, the infamous Buffalo game. And I just watched that highlight a couple of weeks ago. That's one that all Browns fans always talk about, the return against Buffalo. Take us through that game, and what was your mindset going into the NFL playoffs? What was it like, and what was the stadium like after you returned that?
Oh, the stadium was electric even before the return. It was a good game going back and forth. We were able to take the lead and everything. They scored, trying to make a comeback and kicked off, and it was like the Red Sea just parted. And I just ran through there, and I knew they weren't going to catch me. In fact, one of the guys from Buffalo chasing me was a former teammate of mine at Texas.
Who was that?
John Hagee.
Okay.
And he was a safety, and I told him, "You know better than that. What are you waiting? You trying to get a hustle grade for next year? you know better than that. What? And not to mention that I was playing on a fractured foot.
Were you really? I didn't know that.
I actually fractured my foot in that division championship game against the Oilers. So I only played one half of that game when we beat the Oilers to win the division. I only played one half because I fractured my foot, and so I didn't. And then luckily we had 2 weeks off, and then so I didn't practice much because of my foot. And then game day, let's go. We're trying to get to the big one, so it's all or nothing. We went out there and made some plays and forced enough to get that kickoff return when they were trying to make a comeback.
That was a classic game, and that, I think you guys were the last team to beat them for like 4 years in the AFC, because they went to 4 straight Super Bowls.
They went to 4 straight after that. Yeah. We were the last team to beat them.
And they had a hell of a team. Thurman and Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, and they were loaded. So I think Steve Tasker was on that team. There's a bunch of guys on that team. Yeah, that was a great Buffalo team. Daryl Talley. Yep. So you look back now, the first couple of years you had Bud Carson here as coach. And of course that year you went to the AFC Championship game and another Denver loss. And of course, Denver, that's a tough subject. But then Bill Belichick comes in, and now we know he's obviously, a legend. But back then when that was his first coaching gig, what was your opinion of Bill back then? What was it like having him as coach? And did you ever foresee him being, the legend icon he's become?
Well, I don't know if I saw him being the legend that he is and winning all those championships, but I knew he was a good coach. You could tell that by the way he paid attention to detail, both in all phases of the game. No matter what was going on, he knew what was supposed to be happening on all teams, And so you could respect that, the way he coached it. I think when he came in, which was actually my third year, because we had Bud got fired halfway through the second year. Coach Schaffman was the interim, and then Bill came in the third year. I think we were worried about Bill coming because he was coming from the Giants. We had a training camp against them, and we were like, oh, they practice hard. And he's gonna come in trying to run his ship like Parcells was. So it was kind of a tug of war in the beginning, because we had a lot of veterans who obviously had been there for years, had won a lot of games in Cleveland, but at the same time, he had actually won Super Bowl in New York. And so it was a tug of war, because he wanted to do things his way. We wanted to do things our way. And so it didn't really go well at first. And so that's when they started getting rid of players that that people in the city love, like Bernie first, and the K Max, the Reggies, Webster, those guys, and so it made it tough. And we weren't winning games at first, but then Bill finally got to get the people that he wanted in, some of them obviously, and then we started winning games. We should have went to the Super Bowl in '94, and then but so you could tell that he knew what he was doing as a coach. Like I said, but we just it just didn't work because the attitudes of both sides, and so it made it rough. Then even after '94, we're like, we're gonna go to Super Bowl next year. I get traded. Michael Dean's gone,
right?
And so then the turnover comes, and so it was going to take some time for him to win in Cleveland if he was going to do it, because he was getting rid of some of his best players.
Mm-hmm. And then he always said, there was a documentary about 7 years ago, I can't remember the name of it, about the Browns, about that era of the Browns, and Bill was one of the main speakers on it. And he says how one of his biggest, or his only regret really, is not winning in Cleveland. He goes, I wish I could have won a Super Bowl in Cleveland. And I was kind of surprised that that was one of his things he talked about. But and he talked about how they started 3-1, I think, in '95, and then the announcement was made they're going to move, and then the team just went. It was a disaster the rest of the year. I think they finished 4-12. But he always says how he's still convinced that something could have happened. He wished he could have won in Cleveland. And it's again, I think if you play here, you coach here, you understand the passion the fans have and how important football is in this, not just Cleveland, but the state of Ohio, but especially right. Cleveland. You'll find Browns fans, I think they're in 127 different countries, Browns backers bars, and right. It's a crazy fan base. For being a smaller town, we're not an LA, we're not a Seattle or a New York or a Boston. It's just a diehard fan base. So, I have to mention the two punt return games against the Steelers, because this is, everyone wants to hear about this. Well, because I remember watching this as a kid, and this is something that Monday we went back, Eric. Everybody, my class, I was in 4th grade. Everyone was talking about it. It was everyone. Did you see Metcalf? Oh my God, So that was, the whole city was talking about it. Take us through that, and what was that like? And that had to be. I still get chills thinking about it, because I remember the second one, you going on the sideline. I can just see it. It was just definitely an iconic Browns moment, and one that's still replayed over and over again. So take us through both punts, and how did that? What was your mindset, and what did you feel?
Well, first, once again, I wasn't even supposed to play. I didn't think I was going to play that day. We played the Bengals the week before, and I had a knee sprain because somebody fell on my knee. And so I didn't think I was going to play. Bill had this rule: if you don't practice on Friday, you can't play on Sunday. And so I finally go out there on Friday, do a little bit, go through the motions, don't really do much. And then we have the walkthrough on Saturday. I come in Sunday, and I said, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. So of course they had me go out there, run around. I said, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm fine. And we go out there, and we. The good thing is, special team is tough. You have guys, especially starters, especially when they cut the rosters down. You have so many starters who end up having to play special teams because the rosters have been cut down, as opposed to when I first got in, and even before me, you can just have basically special team squads. And so now you have to have starters on the team. So I say that because we had a lot of defensive starters playing on our punt return team. And so, but they didn't dog it, because in their minds, they felt like if they played hard and blocked hard, they had somebody back there who could always take it to the house. And so that makes it it makes it a lot easier, because they're working just as hard because they want to score as well. And so, these guys are always trying to give me touchdowns. They're always trying to give me touchdowns. So we go out there the first one and take it back. And if you watch the tape over and over, you can see guys taking guys out all over the place. And me just trying to weed through there and finally get to the sideline as I limp through there, right? and finally score, which was exciting. And that's a very good game that Sunday night, regardless of who wins it. Mm-hmm. That game was back and forth the entire game, and it was a great game. But after the first one, Stephon Moore comes to me and he says, "We're gonna get another one." And I'm like, okay, because I had never done it twice in the game in the pros or even in college. And so I'm like, yeah, okay. And so we get to that moment, and they're like, let's go get it. And obviously, they kicked it, which I don't know why you would in that situation, because we already returned one. There's 2 minutes to go in the game. You're winning. Why would you kick the ball, right? Kick it out of bounds and make the team drive. Not only that, Vinny had gotten hurt, and so they were going to have to insert Bernie, and so but they punted it because I guess they had foolish pride and felt we could stop him. But once again, we got guys in front of me who are going all out, trying to get us to the end zone, make it easier, and we were able to take that back. And it's a special moment, and it's not my favorite Cleveland Browns moment, but it's getting close because it's everyone else's favorite moment of mine in Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
So it was so special because at that time we had the lead in the division, and so it was a big game. It was a big game, and we were fortunate enough to go out there and win it that way.
I'll never forget it. I was again 4th grade, never forget it. And what was your favorite moment?
See, my favorite moment is a moment that no one knows. It's a game we lost, and we played down in Houston, and I had over 100 yards receiving, and I think I had like 90 yards rushing.
Wow.
And I think that was my favorite moment because that's how I envisioned my whole career. I thought every game would be like that, and I could possibly be a 1,000 guy.
Okay.
If used correctly. And so that's why that's my favorite moment. I mean, there are other good moments, but that's my favorite moment because that's how I envisioned my career being for however long I was in the NFL. But then you have obviously 4 touchdowns against the Raiders. That's up there. You have the last second touchdown against the Raiders the following year, and that's one of my favorite moments because when you're a kid, you sit outside and you shoot hoops. What do you count down the clock?
4, 3, 2, 1. Yep.
You want to make the last shot at the clock. In baseball, you talk about knocking out the walk-off home run.
Yep.
And for that moment, I basically had a walk-off touchdown. And so that was something that I really love because you don't really get those opportunities in football like you do other sports.
Now that's a good point. Because I never thought about that. As far as you in football, especially, you don't really get that opportunity to have like a walk off. You don't see that very often. And looking back at that era, I remember you talk about the special teams. I think Benny Thompson was on special teams back then. He was a great special teams player. Yeah. And who are some of your favorite teammates back then? In those years of the Browns.
Well, Kevin Mack, Webster Slaughter, EB when he came back, obviously Lange, Eric Turner. I still keep in touch with like Antonio Langham, even though he was younger than us, but I keep in touch with him. Michael Dean. That's what it was. That's what made it so fun playing in Cleveland, winning games. But then you had people, Leroy, of course, and you had people who you feel like if you didn't play together, you still be your friend. You can still be their friend. And so when you retire from football, I'm sure you hear all kind of guys. They talk about they kind of miss the game, but they miss more being in the locker room and being around the guys all the time. And so that's so those favorite. You always have favorite teammates. You love everybody. BKs, Hanfords, all those guys. See, these guys I still hang out with when I come back because we had that close bond. We went out there. We were brothers, and we had to fight for each other. So that's what you really love about it.
And Eric, you were here for the last playoff win before this past season, back in, 94.
94, yeah.
94 season. I mean, I remember the Patriots 2013. I watched that game. It was, again, I think I was in 5th grade. And that was it was hard to believe back then, all the success the Browns have had, that would be the last playoff win they would have had for, 5 or 6 years. So it's unbelievable.
It's hard to believe if you don't take into consideration what has happened since. And we had so many new coaches. And what do new coaches do? They bring in new coordinators. And what do new coordinators? They bring in new systems. And then so they get rid of people who they don't think can fit their system. They got to get new quarterbacks. You got to get new this. And so and the way it's run right now, it had been run, it's 2 years, maybe even one for some people, and you're gone. So you never get a chance. And there's so much, there had been so much turnover that it was almost impossible to win. There were some years in there where you could look at the offense and say, they don't have a person on this team that people are scared of defensively.
Right.
That defensive coaches are scared of. And so how are you going to win games? Right? You're not. And so that made it, that's why you can see why that was the last playoff game, but you have to understand the backstory just to really get it and take the fandom out of it. When you take the fandom out of it, then you can understand it.
That's true. And moving away and having, in the city, I remember just being devastated as a little kid. Like when we're losing the Browns, like it doesn't happen. You don't see the Packers move out of Green Bay or the Cowboys move out of Dallas. It doesn't happen. So it's just like, and then I tell my friends who aren't from Cleveland, the Browns here is like a religion. It really is. So it's like to have that leave. Can you imagine the Steelers leaving Pittsburgh? It just doesn't happen.
I can't imagine a lot of teams leaving anywhere.
No,
I couldn't imagine the Browns leaving. And I was in Atlanta when I found out they were moving, but it still hurt me. And it hurt me as if I was still there. And just because the love that I have for Cleveland and its fans, and I didn't feel like the fans deserved that and things like that. So it still hurt me. So now that's why I love the Browns. That's why I'm looking forward to something big happening. And because like I say, I was a part of that, and that's my team.
I love that, and the Browns fans are going to love hearing this. But it's so cool to hear that you guys talk about this current team and to see where we're going, and again the love that you guys have for the city. And again, the Dog Pound, you guys were Reggie, that late 80s, early 90s squad, that's what created the Dog Pound. That's why we have a Dog Pound. That's where it came from. And I think the passion, again, you had the 60s Browns and Jim Brown, those guys, and that's a whole Brian Sipe and before then. But you guys really that was the team that everybody in my era remembers is your team. And that was really our last good memory, for the last 25 years, 25, 30 years. So now, so after you leave Cleveland and go to Atlanta and then of course San Diego and some other places, what was your mindset at that point of your career? Because you made a Pro Bowl again. I mean, you still were doing pretty well. Were you, going to Atlanta, were you kind of, were you disappointed going there? Were you happy? What was your mindset?
I was disappointed. Not because I was traded, because I actually asked for the trade. So I wasn't disappointed because I was traded. I was disappointed in where I was getting traded to. And I say that because the day before, the Browns had given me permission to start negotiating the contract with the 49ers.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm thinking I'm going to 49ers, and now I'm going to be a thousand guy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. And I was down in Miami when my agent called me and said, we're good. We're going to Frisco. We're working out a contract, all that. And I was down in Florida in Orlando playing in a flag football game for the NFL. Me, Eric Turner, Chris Carter, Eric Green, and Dan Marino. And we played against the national flag football champion. We actually lost. We actually lost.
That game should have been on ESPN.
We actually lost. But I was walking off the field, and Yancey Thigpen happened to be there. And as I was walking off the field, he said, "You just got traded." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Cool." He's like, "To Atlanta." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I go in and I call my agent. He's like, "Yeah, they at the last minute they offered a little more." And I was like, "Oh." So I was disappointed in that respect. Also going there, they were going to move me to full-time slot receiver, which I was kind of disappointed about because I had never played receiver in my life, like full-time. I mean, I actually, as a running back, I would split out and go out there and play and do things like that when the offense called for it or the play called for it. But I had never been a full-time guy. And so now I have to go out there and pretty much learn how to do something all over again, from start. And even through training camp, I was like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work because there's so many plays. It was so different. We're running the run and shoot. You're basically calling plays on the run. because everything's options and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is gonna work. Get through a preseason game, first games, the real game start, and it's just like everything went right, and so I mean, first I think the first game I played, I had 11 catches, and so from then on, it just was working like clockwork. It was good. We actually went to the playoffs and lost to Green Bay. And so as the season went on, I was, like I said, I was disappointed in the beginning, but as we were winning games and making the playoff run, and I was catching a lot of balls, I thought I should have went to the Pro Bowl that year, but I didn't. But it was fun. So the disappointment was gone.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was hard seeing you not in a Browns uniform. I remember being, again, in middle school at that point, and it was just weird seeing you in a Falcons uniform. It just didn't seem right.
And it was weird for me. Let me tell you this. I gotta tell you this. It was weird for me because I would never forget. We went to Carolina. We went to Carolina, and Daryl Talley and I, because he was in Buffalo, he had just came to Atlanta as well. We get off the bus, and there are no fans out there. And he's coming from Buffalo, and I'm coming from Cleveland. I'm like, what is this? Where are the fans? I'm used to having them be like, I don't really want to sign autographs right now as I'm getting off the bus, but now I want to sign autographs because
there's nobody there.
Because there's nobody there for the Falcons. And I thought that was the weirdest thing.
Wow, that is weird, and especially a city as big as Atlanta. It's not a small city.
Right. It's weird.
Wow, that's really weird. Mm-hmm. And you're coming from Buffalo, Buffalo and Cleveland, two diehard fan bases, and it's football's everything. Right. So yeah, that was. I just remember you when you left, and seeing you in the Falcons uniform for the first time. It just, again, I think we all thought it's just like burning Dallas. Like it just seemed weird. It was like, this doesn't seem right. So it's just, I don't know. But you went on obviously to make the Pro Bowl in San Diego, and I mean, take us. Did you think? Because again, that's at this point you've been in the league 8 years? I think when you're in San Diego.
Something like that, yeah.
Yes, and you had another great year, and I know you said you didn't win a lot, but it had to be rewarding to at least make the Pro Bowl.
So yeah, San Diego, my 9th year. That was my 9th year.
Okay.
And so yeah, it was rewarding making the Pro Bowl, but once again, we weren't winning games.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that fun. And then even on offense, I wasn't being used. I think I caught maybe 40 something passes, maybe had a couple of runs from scrimmage, but it wasn't nothing. So it wasn't nothing that I was accustomed to. And so that losing and not getting the ball, I was praying that we could get a defensive stop so I can go on the field. Please get a defensive. Let's go. Please, can the punt return team get out there so I can go get the ball at least one more time?
Oh, that's great. Okay, speaking of returns, and who hit you the hardest in the NFL? All your years in the NFL, is there a safety or something? Who hit you the hardest? I'm
gonna tell you, I don't know if it was the hardest, but Chuck Cecil got me good.
Really?
Yeah, he got me good in Cleveland one year. I think it was our second year. I was he got lucky, but he got me good because there was nothing I could do. So I'm running a sweep left towards our sideline, and a defensive lineman breaks through. So I have to run full speed to try to get around him and get around the corner. As I'm coming to the corner, because I obviously outran the defensive lineman, but as I'm coming around the corner, the way it's being blocked, it was just an alley. It's either I go through this alley or I'm going to run into the tackler. And so I go through this alley and I'm going full speed, and Chuck Cecil comes from full speed from back at the safety spot. And bam! Oh God! And he got me. But like I said, there was nothing I could do about it. I mean, if he would have caught me and there was some space and I saw him coming, I would have had his face on the ground.
and back then there were so many. I mean, there's guys like Ronnie Lott, and we can go on and on. Just Steve Atwater, a bunch of guys back then who can just, Reggie White. It was, really an incredible defensive league back then. There was a lot of, for all the great quarterbacks, there was a lot of great. Reggie White, to me, you can make an argument he's the greatest defensive player of all time. Him and LT, or at least two of the 3 or 4 greatest of all time. They were that good. LT was a whole different story. So you got to play against a lot of legendary defensive guys back then.
I tell kids all the time, I said, when I played, football players were good. They were like really good. It wasn't about the system. It wasn't about guys just fitting in and making plays because they're playing with Tom Brady. They were good. There was no salary cap. So if a first rounder wasn't any good, they could cut him.
It's true.
You know?
Yeah.
They could cut him. So they were going to keep, for the most part, they were going to keep the best players at that time, regardless of what round you got in. So that's when you had depth at all the positions. People were really good. And so that's why we got to play against some of the best players ever. And it was fun because it's more fun knowing that you're playing against these defensive players who are considered some of the greatest players ever and know that you did good things against them.
Yeah.
Right.
You did all-time things. You're an all-timer. I mean, and you're talking about some of the talent back then. I remember the Eagles, I think in the early 90s had like Jerome Brown, the late Jerome Brown, Reggie White, Seth Joyner, Eric Allen. I mean, you want to talk about loaded. You're talking about potential Hall of Fame talent, especially if Jerome doesn't, pass away, all over the field. And that was, some people think that could have been one of the greatest defensive ever, with the Giants and some others if, Jerome didn't pass away. And then of course, Reggie left and, but I remember as a little kid, that defense coming up and everyone's like, oh, those Eagles, man, they're going to be, and then it never panned out, but yeah, they were loaded as well. And there's so many great defenses back then.
There's so many great teams. I mean, but once again, it's easy. It's always good on paper. You got to go out there and do it in between those white lines, which makes it tough because on the other sideline, those guys are pros also.
Yeah.
And they're good, regardless of what team you're on. The guys on the other side get paid just like you do. And so that's why you can't take it for granted. You have to go out there, you have to study. You have to work hard. You have to do everything right in order to win Super Bowls. And I hate to say it, but that's why the Patriots have won a lot of Super Bowls because when it was time to play their best football, they did it.
Mm-hmm. You're right. And I think, and again, with them too, the system you talked about, they had that system, Belichick and Brady, and they just knew, and they played in a division that was weaker at some points. They had a lot of buys in the playoffs, but still, you got to give them credit. They got there. And
they
won.
Earned those buys.
They earned those buys. They did. And they won. I mean, they won those big games year after year. So, and it's kind of ironic how the one season where they're undefeated, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but and they were blowing everybody out that season. But the Giants, I had a buddy who played in that Giants team, Barry Cofield. And, that team, obviously, I didn't expect that to happen, especially low scoring, 17-14, I think it ended up being. But, but overall, there was just, but to see Belichick win 6 Super Bowls and the Ravens win multiple Super Bowls. And as a Browns fan, you're sitting here and the Steelers and you're like, oh, what's going on here? I mean, it's like all of our rivals and people moving away, they're all winning and we're without a team. And then we have a team that's not good for a while. But Eric, if you could go back, I have a couple more questions for you. If you could play in this era with your skill set, how do you envision the game? Because I think you could do pretty much anything. So would you have loved to play in this era or would you have preferred to play in the era that you played in?
I loved playing in that real football era. I really did. Like I said, because there were so many good football players and I got to be considered one of the best during that time. So I loved playing in that era. But I think if I played today, I think I might get that 1,000. Because the way the offenses are run, the way the game is played now, I could be in Carolina like Christian McCaffrey. I can be in New Orleans like Alvin Kamara and do and catch the ball and run the ball a lot because it's so spread out. Everybody. Back then it was smash mouth football, and I'm a smaller guy, so I'm not going to get the ball 20 times a game because everything is pretty much between the tackles. Right now, it's so spread out. They're doing so many things with these running backs who can do everything. Mm-hmm. And so now they don't have to come off the field. So the opportunities to do 1,000 are greater because they can come in there on first and second down and don't have to worry about only coming in on third down and being considered a third down back. And so I think right now, if I played, I'd probably get more than that 64 million Christian McCaffrey got.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I always think your skill set, I feel like, maybe it was Reggie even said it. Someone said that even Bill Belichick and those guys didn't even know how to use you really back then in some ways because you just had such a dynamic skill set, but you weren't, in this era, there's a lot of guys, you would fit in almost any offense. I mean, they can find tons of ways to get you the ball in open space. But back then it just seemed like you weren't even used as much as you could have been.
But it's a copycat league. And so, back then, nobody was really playing football like that. Green Bay did a little bit. Obviously, the Oilers, because they ran the run and shoot. But can you think of another team that played wide open football like that? Buffalo. We'll say Buffalo.
Okay. Maybe a little bit San Fran with, I guess.
But they were running West Coast offense.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
They were running West Coast offense. But so so it's a copycat league. And so especially playing in the AFC North at that time was cold. You got to go to Pittsburgh. You got to go to Cincinnati. They got to come to Cleveland. And you get the one little good game in Houston. And so it's smash mouth football. It's about running the ball in between the tackles and pretty much trying to dominate the line of scrimmage. Whereas then people start going to the spread offense, which is crazy because they used to say that run and shoot couldn't work in the NFL, right? But now that's what everyone's doing basically. And so it gives opportunity for offenses to just go out there and run all over the place, especially with the rule changes. You can't hit people, you can't touch people. So it makes it a lot easier on these offenses because they want to see points, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is you see most teams, their third receiver is probably better than your third DB.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And these guys are thriving. And so I would love to play running back, slot, anywhere in the game today because of the way it is played today, because it has just changed and it looks fun. It looks fun, and they get paid a lot to do it and have fun.
Yes, they do. And it's funny. You mentioned how they can't touch as much now, and the rules are different. I have a lot of NBA players on the podcast, and I had Ricky Pearson, and he played 17 years in the NBA. And he was saying how, back in he played against Magic, and he was a sixth man of the year multiple times with the Bucks, and so he played against MJ, Magic, all those guys. And he said, pardon? He did exactly. Yeah, he played in Seattle. Yeah, we talked about that. Sean Kemp and Peyton. I love those. That was one of my favorite teams. Yeah. And Ricky was saying how he's like, Brad, he's like, I love no disrespect to Steph Curry and Clay and these guys, because obviously they're incredible shooters and I love watching them. But back when I played, you had to come off of pick and rolls. People are bumping you, they're hitting your hand, there's hand checking. You got guys like Rodman following you around. I mean, it was a different, like you guys. So it was a very different era. It was more physical.
They were getting touched up.
Yep, they were getting touched up. He goes, Brad, you weren't getting a shot off without someone hitting you.
Right.
So it wasn't like you're just coming off a screen and nobody's hitting you. You guys are bumping you and hitting you. And I mean, MJ, you saw what he went through, in the Last Dance, and those guys would just beat him up. The Celtics, Pistons, Knicks. I just had actually Anthony Mason's son, Antoine, on the podcast earlier today. Okay. And Antoine, we're talking about his dad, and they were bruisers, man. I mean, Anthony Mason, Oakley, those guys. So the NFL was the same way. It was a different sport back then. It was more brutal. It was a much more physical sport. And I don't blame, not wanting the quarterbacks to get hit as much. I get some of that. I do. I understand. But it's also to the point now where I feel if you even touch the guy, I mean, Miles gets some penalties on him where I'm kind of like, some of them are justified. Other ones I'm kind of like, I don't know. So it is how it is now. But you're right. It's just much more wide open.
That just barely touched them thing cost the Chiefs a couple of years ago, right?
It did, yeah.
Playing against the Patriots, and so I mean that's why these days is I hate to say it, but it's hard for me to consider a quarterback a football player because he doesn't really play football. Football players get hit.
They're not getting hit anymore. No, you're right.
They hit and get hit, and they don't get hit. And so.
I mean, you look at some of the hits Marino, Bernie, Kelly, those guys took back then. They were just brutalized. I mean, Reggie was talking about Bernie a couple of times where he'd get up and he goes, I don't think Bernie knew where he was. Right. So, I mean, it was just a different. And I get the concussion thing. It's a very serious thing. I totally understand that. And that's not, but it's just, now it seems like it's gone way the other way now where you can't touch anybody. So it's just.
Which is actually crazy because, when I look at this game, the way it's played today, and once again, it's all about safety, and we get it. And I complain about these guys aren't playing football. This is not football. But what we played is nowhere near football compared to what my dad played.
It's true. Yep.
and those guys, that was football. That was head slapping. That was clotheslines. That was everything.
The Tatums and Hams and those guys are coming after your head.
That was real football right there. So,
Yeah, it's interesting how that's evolved over the years. Yep.
But I get it.
Yeah, it's just, and you kind of you were kind of in the middle of that. You're right. That was like I still consider your generation extremely, it was a violent sport back then. I mean, it still is today, but back then it was extremely violent. And it was just, I remember, I don't know how many quarterbacks I remember. I think actually Dan Marino got hurt in Cleveland the one game I was at as a little kid. And Scott Mitchell had to come in. I think he was out the whole season. Yeah.
And they beat us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then Mitchell got that big contract the next year because of it. Yeah. Cause I was at that game. I was probably 10 years old, 11. I'll never forget that. And I remember the fan in front of me was this woman, and Dan was on the field. He was, in agony, and she goes, "Drag his ass off the field." Browns fans are, and we were laughing, but I was a 10-year-old kid. I'm like, wow, these people are crazy. But yeah, I remember that. And Scott Mitchell came in, and then the next year, I think he went to the Lions and got a huge contract. Yep. It was, yeah. So 2 more questions for you. And speaking of running backs, one of my favorite players of all time is Barry Sanders. And, he could do it all. But he never obviously had the team around him necessarily to really take it to the next level. He had some Herman Moore and some guys in that team, but never really had the best quarterback. The line wasn't always the best. But where do you rank Barry all time on that running back list?
He's up there. I mean, because he could make anybody miss. He can obviously score a lot of touchdowns and do some things that a lot of people couldn't do. But then you got Jim Browns, you got Earl Campbell's, you got Walter Payton, you got the Gale Sayers who had only played 6 years and did incredible things. There's so many good guys, and so it's hard to say where I rank him. I think he's ranked high, and he should be ranked higher because he did what he did on a team that wasn't very good. I think the only reason they were going to the playoffs like that is because of him, right?
It's true, yeah.
Because of what he was able to do. But there was, like I said, there's so many guys, and everybody does it different. Everybody does it different, and so that's what makes it hard when you're talking about ranking these guys as the best running backs or best position players and whatever. I think it's easier for me to say who I think the greatest football players are than it is to pick someone out of a specific position.
No, give me 2 or 3 of your all-time favorite football players. Who do you think should be on the Mount Rushmore?
Jim Brown, prime time, Deion Sanders. I gotta say, I would have to say Jerry Rice, even though he's not my all-time favorite receiver.
Who's that?
Randy Moss.
Oh yeah, love Randy.
Moss. But what Jerry was able to accomplish.
Oh, Jerry was, yeah absolutely.
So you have to say Jerry Rice, and then.
What about defensively?
To me, that dude playing in Los Angeles right now, Aaron Donald.
He's a monster. He's a monster.
That dude, I think he's probably the only player who's playing right now that you can honestly say is the greatest to ever play at his position.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast. There is no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, so him, but obviously you got the LTs and those guys, but Aaron Donald, he's in the middle line and wreaking havoc like that.
I mean, he's getting as many sacks as an edge rusher, as an elite edge rusher, and he's a freak. I mean, I think him and Miles right now are the 2 best at their positions, and it's not even close when they're on their game.
On their game, yeah.
Okay, so last question I got for you, and I ask every guest this question. I love hearing it. When you look back, your career and everything you've done from track, football, and everything, personal life, business life, what do you want people to know about the legacy of Eric Metcalf?
That he could do it all. Because once again, I go back to what is a football player, and I think about a football player, somebody who could change positions, who could do it all. And so when I look at people and think of my career and all that kind of stuff, I think about that he could do it all. There was nothing he couldn't do on the football field if asked to.
That's true. And again, you and Barry, when I look back at the 90s, you and Barry Sanders were 2 of the most electrifying players in the league. I mean, you could take it to the house at any time. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about Barry. But, you will always be known as one of the most electrifying players in NFL history. And again, when I had people text me and email me about you, when I told them you're going to be on the show, I mean, you don't know how many people said my favorite player of all time or one of my favorite players or one of my favorite return men. Everyone remembers, how you played the game. And I think people, it sticks out in their minds because you remember players who are that electrifying. And you and Barry in that era were two of the most electrifying by far.
I appreciate that. Now, what those people that you told, and they were like, "He's my favorite player," they need to call the Hall of Fame because
well, really,
and tell them because that's how I feel about this whole situation. Because I can say I've scored as a receiver, a running back, a punt returner, a kick returner, and actually thrown touchdown passes also. But everyone can't say that.
No,
I can say I've won football games at different positions. And so, but everyone can't say that.
And I told you, for those listening and for the NFL listening, any of the players listening, only player in NFL history with 7,000 total offensive yards and 7,000 return yards. Only player in history to do that. And you also you have multiple records. You're within a couple other players, I think, that had, I can't remember the statistic I read, but I mean, you have over a certain amount of rush yards, receiving yards, punt return yards, and kick return yards. And only like 3 or 4 players who had that. Or maybe it's just you and Darren Sproles, actually. Might just be you and Darren Sproles.
I think Darren Sproles also.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, that's all time records. We're talking about all the players in NFL history. So, yeah, I think you should be in the Hall of Fame. And what you did, the returns and everything, and the big moments. I mean, you did a lot of this. And like I said, the Steelers returns, that was a big game. The Buffalo game, these are in big time moments. It wasn't just a random preseason game or game. It didn't matter. Right. So, again, I think those kind of records, just that 7,000 yards offensively and return wise, I mean, that's a hell of a feat.
Yeah, once again, because being able to do it all, that's what I did since the time I stepped on the field at 7 years old to the time I retired. And that's all I ever wanted to do.
Well, Eric, man, it was awesome having you on the show. It really was. I mean, you're an icon for me. You're one of my favorite players growing up. And again, I remember watching you as a little kid going to the stadium, and it's a true honor having you on the show. And it's kind of surreal. I mean, interviewing some of these guys from my past, guys I grew up, idolizing, it's truly a dream come true. And all my friends kind of live vicariously through me. And they're like, man, I can't believe you're interviewing Metcalf, So it's an honor for me. And obviously as a fellow Browns fan, I just definitely appreciate you coming on the show. I know a lot of Browns fans will appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good
Absolutely.
Time.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome back anytime, Eric. So definitely appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.